When it comes to positioning in endgame, the layer you're on can be the difference between constant fighting on low ground, a free rotate on the mid ground, and free frags on the high ground. Knowing the difference of all layers in endgame, when to change layers, and where and when to get a refresh will lead to higher consistency in games, avoiding fights, and winning more tournaments. Hi everyone, my name is HyperDrive, and welcome back to another episode of my series, Gamesense 101. In this series, I will be taking you through every aspect of Gamesense in Fortnite, to teach you how to improve your knowledge and start winning more games. In order to make sure we're all on the same page, it is important to define the different layers in endgame. Starting from the bottom, we have the low ground. This is the most congested layer, and the riskiest to play. The bottom of the low ground is ultimate low. This is a complete free-for-all, where players with no mats try to get refreshes, but more on that later. Next, we have the mid ground. Mid ground is much less uncontested, and is usually filled with players maintaining a good amount of mats. Although there are less players contesting, you will have to use more mats because there are less builds to reuse as there would be on low ground. Finally, we have the high ground. This is the layer above every other layer, and it controls the endgame. You are able to easily take shots and find picks from a bird's eye view, while preserving mats because you don't have to build to your sides or above you. The biggest downfall is how difficult it is to maintain. Without pressure items like an RPG or items like the shockwave launcher or a grappler, it is hard to hold height for a long period of time. Knowing when to take high ground and knowing if you have the items or mats to maintain the high ground is essential to controlling it. So, where should you play? The layer you should play on differs based on your loadout. If you have a very low amount of mats, no rotations, and need to get a refresh, try dropping down to low ground. This does not mean dropping down to ultimate low, because any refresh you get is most likely on players with no loot, so it will not impact your game as much as a player with good mats and heals. If you have a good amount of mats, maybe a crash pad or two, and lots of heals, play on the mid ground. The best thing you can do is stay in front of the zone and being back at the players being pressured by zone. By doing this, you are essentially holding these players and forcing them to focus on both you and the incoming storm. This usually leads to an easy kill, but make sure not to tunnel vision so that you are not the one being pressured by zone. If you get yourself into that situation, the most important thing to do is to change your layer. Even just one layer change can make it nearly impossible for a player to continue pressuring you. If possible, try to maintain a layer completely uncontested. By doing this, you will not be pressured by other players on your level, and will have a much easier rotation path, along with preserving mats and heals. You can usually get picks on players below you, and even if you don't get the loot from the kill, it is still another point on the leaderboard. Now, the high ground. If you can successfully get high ground and maintain it, do it. This is the layer that wins games. As long as you are being aware of your surroundings and pressuring second height or any teams that look like they want to take height, you will guarantee yourself a high kill, high placement match. In this season's meta, we see that the caddy launcher is able to easily take high ground because of its ability to not only launch upwards towards height, but also break down the structures holding it up. This limits the amount of opportunities you have to hold high ground without the launcher, but that does not mean you should not try to get it. Now, let's talk about refreshes. The best refresh you can get is on a player on a higher mid-ground layer. Those players are guaranteed to have a good amount of mats and heals. Using a crash pad exploit is a great way to surprise your opponent and get a refresh. Although you might think that a refresh on low ground is better because it's more congested, the loot is going to be much worse and will only keep you moving for another 20 to 30 seconds before you need another refresh. The lower you go, the harder it is to go back up. Using floppers and going for a height play, or even sneaking up behind players on the mid ground is also a great way to get a refresh. The height player is most likely going to have the best loot in the game, but it is very hard to fight them if you don't do it quickly. A flopper play will give you the ability to sneak around and completely surprise your opponent, and get an easy refresh, or steal height. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. If I missed anything or you have any more information or tips to add, please discuss in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please like, and if you didn't, please dislike and let me know what to change. Thank you guys for watching, and if you want to catch more of my content, make sure to follow my Twitch stream.